To give and receive. They say it's better to give than to receive. Why is that? I'm sure there's a biblically correct answer out there. I, however, believe that there should be a balance. In theory, if one gives and gives, they create room to receive. Whereas, if one constantly receives, then they now have much to give. Sadly, that's not always the case. If you don't monitor things closely, you can find yourself in a situation where you have given so much, yet received so little. I want to take a minute to break down what it is to give and what it is to receive. To be honest, I believe that it's important to receive as it is to give. To give. I once heard it said that we have so much to give. What does that mean exactly? It means that in life, we receive a plethora of wealth in various forms. There's the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of resources, the wealth of money, the wealth of inspiration, and so on and so on. Now, when we accumulate all this wealth, we will often find ourselves in situations where we are positioned to give of ourselves to help others. The act of giving should come from the heart, sharing what you can for the sake of someone's betterment. The act of giving is noble and admirable, but we have to be mindful of how much we give and to know when too much is too much. These various pots of wealth are meant for us to share and build a better community. However, it is also meant for our empowerment and growth. We have to be careful not to give so much that we begin to feel the lack. For almost 2 years now, my life has looked different yet familiar. What I mean is that normally I give of myself in abundance to others. However, now that I have been focused on my self-care and growth, I have been giving of myself to myself more frequently. The rate by which I give compared to what I receive sometimes leaves me in a state of lack. The lack of energy, lack of motivation, lack of strength, lack of sleep, the list goes on and on. The person that I am, it's hard for me to ask for others to give to me, so I often go without. This is where my stance on there being a balance stems from. Is it truly better to give than to receive if you run the risk of giving too much and losing yourself in the process? To receive. Throughout our lives, we will find ourselves in the position to receive. Whether something physical, like money or an item, or something intangible, like encouragement, support, and guidance. Your openness and reception of the wealth is very important. One must learn to receive humbly and with a genuine heart. Remember, no one has to share with you, so if they do, learn to receive it well. Also, I find that it is important to be appreciative of all forms of wealth that is shared with you, but that you never become explicitly complacent with receiving. What I am referring to is to do your best not to become someone who takes more than they give, or one who gives very little to begin with. For this life is a journey, one in which we walk side by side, yet we are all heading to different places. They say every man is responsible for their own destiny. And if you were handed everything you have and worked for very little, who is actually in charge of your destiny? The answer is someone else. Shuffling from one day to the next in this state of lack, I find myself becoming more aware of the fact that I have not and do not receive nowhere close to the volume of which I give. It's like I'm a 5-gallon bucket, and at any given time I'm pouring out 3 to 4 gallons of myself. Yet, I may only get 1 or 2 gallons back. This dynamic leads to lack every time. For me, it's difficult to ask others to share their wealth with me, because I have seen people who have taken advantage of others' generosity. Too many people around me take way more than they give, and I have watched them become something I don't resonate with. They have become dependent and almost entitled to the wealth of others, and that's a bad way to be. Therefore, I struggle with asking, but I have learned to be open and appreciative should someone decide to share with me. So in closing, the more I live on and experience life, the more I am solidified in my stance that it is not always better to give than to receive. There has to be a balance. Know when to give and know when to be open to receiving. For leaning too far into either direction has its detriments. It is my prayer that you give cheerfully and that you always remember to receive humbly. Remember that to whom much is given, much is required. Now, go forward and be blessed. You got this.